I thought the answer to all of my confidence issues, insecurities, or fears was a smaller body. I think I convinced myself that if I just lost the weight, the extra weight I was holding on to, if I became a smaller version of myself, that suddenly I would be confident, I would be thriving, and I wouldn't have any fears or insecurities that were holding me back any longer. Never would I have guessed that it was all actually the start of a journey into personal development, into improving my relationship with myself, with my body, into kind of stepping into a new identity and into a new way of being and uncovering all of the deeper, real things that were holding me back from confidence, feeling secure, and thriving. Hi, I am Sonia, and if you've been here before, you already know I am actively learning to move before I'm ready and to sit in the discomfort or stay just a little bit longer. And as I always say, if you're on this journey too, then welcome. Today, I'm talking about my weight loss journey, and I've talked about my weight loss journey in probably every video that I have recorded in some way or capacity, whether it's, about the actual work and the tiny steps I needed to take to get there, how long it took me to finally achieve the goal that I had talked about for so long, or just because it was such a catalyst and such a huge learning experience. So it's really become an anchor in my story and something I reflect on and look back on often, especially when I need evidence of having done successfully hard things in the past. And I think it's also so important because it really did teach me the difference between what we think we want and how we consciously or subconsciously look for external validation and what we really want and what we really need, which is really the season that I'm in now. And I look back at that journey so differently now compared to, when it started 8 years ago. And I always was in a mid-shaped body. I mean, diet culture would have made me believe that I was in a larger body, but I was always fairly average in my weight, size, and appearance. And then throughout university, early in my career life, I had gained a lot of weight for a number of reasons, and I became very uncomfortable in my own skin. And I had recently actually been reflecting on, trips that I took and how often when I was in a larger body, I held myself back. And I had such little belief or even like love for myself in that larger body. And I would not wear the swimsuit, not wear the shorts. I would always sit with my arms crossed. I wouldn't talk to people, approach to people. And internally in my mind, I convinced myself that people didn't want to talk to me. It made, dating difficult. It made adventures and new experiences difficult because I was just like so scared of that external appearance. And it really did take a hit on my confidence and how I showed up in the world. And I have referenced before that it took me a very long time to actually make lasting changes. So for 10 years, I kind of fought the concept of I want to lose weight. I want to be smaller. I don't want to wear bigger sizes anymore. I want to wear cute and trendy outfits that I see like my peers or people on the street wearing. And I would always go too big, too extreme. It was never sustainable. And I never actually made lasting changes. And then, as I've kind of alluded to before, I finally found that balanced approach. I walked into the right gym at the right time, and I kind of started twice a week, 3 times a week. Started with boot camps, started with cleaning up my nutrition in small ways, eventually worked with a personal trainer for over a year, and I lost over 90 pounds. And I remember that year And I was reflecting on it recently. Like it took me 2.5 years. It was not a quick and easy transformation. It really was something that I did slowly. I took a lot of time to do body recomp and to build muscle. And like I said, I started twice a week, eventually got myself to 6 times a week for, an hour and a half to 2 hours a day. Then there was a whole journey of finding moderation and balance, which maybe I'll talk about a little bit more. But that was kind of the journey. And I look back at it all so fondly because it taught me that I did have discipline, that I was resilient, that I could follow a program and do hard things. It taught me a lot about boundaries. It's funny how when you start to take control of your health, like your surroundings can really make it difficult for you. And I'll never forget, the heat I got when I would say no to cake at a work event because I was trying to watch my calories, or I would order salad instead of French fries. And I made different swaps and more aggressive swaps, especially at the beginning, because I was so hyper focused and dedicated to reaching my goal. And it is really funny because in all of my videos, I kind of talk about how motivation comes after, and the results aren't always as quick as you'd like them to be. And that was definitely super true in this journey. The first 30 pounds, like I didn't really notice. The people around me didn't really notice. I might have started getting some comments of, oh, like you look good. And have you been exercising? You're moving more. But it really took up to that point. And I think the 30 pounds took me, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. The first, big weight bucket came off quickly. And then after that, it started becoming more visible and people started noticing and commenting, asking what I was doing. No one liked the answer because it really was, like I said, it took 2.5 years. It really was slow, done properly. I followed a plan. I worked with a trainer. I really monitored like my diet and my intake, and I achieved a goal I never thought was feasible. And I booked a photo shoot that my trainer suggested to kind of mark the moment in time. And I remember feeling so good and so beautiful. My skin was glowing, my hair was done. And part of me was finally like, this is what you've been working so hard for. And I had great energy levels. And it was really a wonderful experience. But what no one really prepares you for is there were moments, especially when I received the external validation, like I started getting more compliments, started getting hit on more, people started noticing me a lot more. But my internal world wasn't really caught up with my external world and external reality. And, some people talk about it like you go to the store and you pick up the bigger sizes because you're just not really used to the idea of being in a smaller body. Or you don't really see yourself the way that other people see you. So while I externally did really like 90 pounds, put on a lot of muscle, looked really good, inside, I didn't feel it. There were still parts of me that would nitpick at imperfections or that I still felt larger in my body. I would still compare myself to other people. And the most clear memory that still comes through to this day is I was picking up a package from my concierge and he looked at me. He's like, you look beautiful. He also was like, enough, like make sure you keep some curves and things like that. And it came from like a really, really nice and like sincere place. But he's like, I just want you to know that you were beautiful before also. Like you're beautiful now, but you were beautiful before. And I heard that. And I remember going upstairs and like I started crying because I didn't feel beautiful before. And not only did the external like reality not match before, like I wasn't seen the same, I didn't feel the same, I didn't get the compliments, no one was asking me about like my routines or where I shopped, anything like that. But internally, I most definitely never felt worthy and beautiful and like confident in my bigger body. And I think that comment got to me because it was like the catalyst or the start of the realization that Yes, you want to be healthy, and it's great to achieve what society has deemed like an acceptable or a beautiful body standard. But the real work starts when you go inside and realize how much you've been rejecting yourself or focusing on the external and what you really believe about yourself. And honestly, I reached like the peak of my weight loss about 6 years ago. And then the last 6 years has also been a journey of continued, like, actually loving and accepting the body that I'm in and finding a routine that is sustainable and balanced and works for me. And, when I was at the peak of my fitness level, like, I was in the gym 6 days a week, an hour and a half to 2 hours each session. I was weight training. I was doing the cardio. I was counting my macros. And it was probably, apart from work, my biggest priority. I would wake up at 4 a.m. I would make sure I got to the gym. I would not really go out too much after work because I had a commute and I needed to get home, make sure that I like had a good dinner, tidied up, and I got enough sleep to wake up early again the next day. I wouldn't eat what I wanted at restaurants because I was really mindful of my calories. I didn't want to eat anything vegetarian or vegan because I was so worried about hitting a certain protein macro. So then learning to find balance after that journey was another journey within itself. And learning to not hyperfixate on my body or my weight fluctuating 5 to 10 pounds was also a journey, one that I'm still on, candidly. And it's funny because I woke up this week actually, and I was thinking about goals and how sometimes your goals change. Depending on where you're at in life and like where you're at in your development journey. And my goal was always like, I need my dream physique, or I need to lose X amount of pounds, or I need to lift X amount of, weight in my deadlift or my squat. And now I literally wrote down, how beautiful would it be to wake up and not think about your body and not think about how you look, but just be happy and content and confident in your own skin, knowing that you take the absolute best care of yourself. Because as much as now for 6 years, I've been in a much smaller body for me and like a societally accepted version of size and appearance, I have always found something to nitpick on, whether it's that my legs aren't as smooth as they could be. And especially as my training had reduced from, again, the 6 days a week, 2 hours a session to 4, 5 times a week, maybe 30 minutes. And even now, I've started doing much more of a hybrid approach because I wanted to challenge myself to get into endurance running. So I need to save a lot of energy for endurance. I've had to change the way I fuel my body for that sport. So, I'm doing one lower body and one upper body strength training session once a week. So 2 strength training sessions a week. I'm doing like Pilates once a week, and it's like maybe 30, 40 minutes max each time. And I'm running a few times a week. And that is actually a lot. And it is a very respectable routine and like fitness approach. But in my mind, because it wasn't 2 hours a day, multiple times a week, and I wasn't like killing myself with the weight selection, with how long I've been training, how fast I've been running, it wasn't enough. So that's been the new part of the journey. And then realizing you're going to fuel yourself differently. So, like, carbohydrates aren't necessarily bad for you, especially if you are endurance running. And I don't want this to be like a fitness and nutrition video, but I think I'm sharing this just for the awareness of there's been such a huge physical part of this journey and mental aspect, but the true growth, the true wisdom came from all of the inner work that it catalyzed and that it brought to the surface. And helping me realize how I was chasing an external version of like acceptance, of how I was for a very long time rejecting myself and abandoning myself because I did not feel worthy, of how I was restricting myself and pushing my body, my mind, kind of going into machine mode because I felt like I had to maintain this standard. And then once I finally reached this goal, the goal that I was, convinced was the answer to all of my problems, I was so scared of losing it that I would grip onto it and, so terrified that if I slipped up a little bit and gained a few pounds or ate, a few extra calories, that all of my hard work would be taken away from me. And suddenly I would go back to a place I didn't want to go back to. So the real work has been in trying to move from a place of love and trying to fuel myself from a place of love. And I know that maybe sounds a little corny, but to me, or for me rather, like that's the secret. Like, what if you moved from a place because you loved yourself and you know that it's good for your heart and it's good for your soul and it's going to help you with longevity and mobility and make sure that you're functional and feeling good as you age? What if you ate food because you know it leaves you feeling energized and light? And what if you prioritize sleeping because you know that sleeping is critical for like all of your muscles to restore and to kind of like absorb all the nutrients? Like, this isn't scientific, but the whole aspect of is like finding the balance between moving and eating and resting, but doing it all from a place of like, what do I actually need and what's actually beneficial for me? And this also started a lot more reflection on like, what is it that you really want? Because as I went through the journey of, being my smallest, most muscular, most physically fit, to where I am now, which objectively I'm like very comfortable and I'm very happy. But there has been an aspect of like, oh, like I used to lift heavier. I used to be smaller. I used to have a flatter stomach. But then realizing of like, I don't want that lifestyle anymore. Like, I have so much respect for the people that can really maintain these beautiful physiques and they find their version of moderation, their version of sustaining it. And, maybe some of them do it for a career, or maybe some of them just have such a passion or a background of athleticism. So, no judgment. And by no means am I saying anything bad about that, nor am I like going to question their motives or, the sustainability of it. But for me, I don't want to spend hours in the gym. I don't want to hyperfixate on my calories or what I'm eating. I want to be able to miss a workout session and realize it's not that big of a deal and it's not going to put me back months or, negate all of the hard work that I did. And I just want to feel good in my skin. So, like I said, the goal has become like, I just want to move and eat and operate from a place of love and acceptance and not think about my body, because I know that my habits and my actions are fueling a healthy body, mind, and soul. And however that appears, like, she is worthy and she is beautiful and she deserves to be confident and feel good in her own skin. Um, and that's the current journey, and that's where we're at. And I think, without having gone through the extremes and without having then realized like the relationship between the external and internal world, and then without having learned how much I was rejecting myself or how I didn't see my worth and I made it dependent on external circumstances or validation, like without all of that, I wouldn't have gotten here. And I'm grateful for all of it. And I'm also so abundantly grateful for the journey, because it did teach me discipline. And because I was so strict and I did go through such a regimented program, I have learned a lot about nutrition and training. And I do have a lot of muscle mass and muscle memory, which helps me maintain to a much easier degree. So all of it has been so value added and wonderful and such a huge catalyst for my growth. But I'm very excited for this new journey and for this new goal of, okay, Like, how can we do this differently? And how can we move from that place of love? But the reason I reference it, as I think I said at the beginning of the video, is it's such a great example of how sometimes fear and fear of success can hold us back. So it took me 10 years, like I said, to find the sustainable version of working out, to find the right gym, to find the right moment in life where I had the capacity to take this on as a priority and, to build the mental resilience, grit, and discipline that I needed. It was also such a perfect example of the feedback cycle. So, like I said, the first 30 pounds, I didn't notice, no one noticed. So it took a lot of that action before, reward and action before motivation. So I took the first step, felt a little bit better. And then I had to keep kind of going and going and going. And yeah, started with twice a week, 3 times a week, got a trainer, did a photo shoot. I even got my personal training certification at one point and my nutrition coach certification. But it really did make me fall in love with fitness, and it helped me form new habits and a new identity. Now I can confidently say I am a person that loves fitness and nutrition and movement, and I know it'll always be a part of my life. But it didn't start that way. And I think that's the other biggest lesson, and why I use this as such a catalyst and example in all of my videos. It was a lot of grinding and, start, stop, fail. And even the year that I did make all of these lasting changes, I did first go guns a-blazing 7 days a week for 2 weeks. I got knee pain, I stopped. And, yeah, bless the trainer at the gym that messaged me and said, "Hey, we haven't seen you in a while. Why don't you come back in?" And I started with moderation, but it was just such a perfect example of the journey isn't always straight and easy. Like, sometimes it takes some twists and turns. Sometimes you have to start and stop. And sometimes you have to move before you're ready and keep moving, even though you don't see the benefit or the goal that you want. And I also think it was so powerful because I never wanted to reach a certain goal when I started and it actually stuck. I bent over to tie my shoe and I got winded. And I'm like, "You are way too young to get winded bending over to tie your shoe. Something's got to change." That was my catalyst. I didn't care if it was 5 pounds, 20 pounds. Never in a million years would I have expected 90. Never in a million years would I have expected that I would start weightlifting. I didn't even lift up 5 pound weights, let alone, deadlifting 225. Like, such a beautiful journey. And it really was the start to developing confidence. Like, it was one of the biggest catalysts. And my trainer would say, like, fitness is such a powerful tool for you to build confidence because it's such a tangible example of I can't do it and now I can. And now I can do more than I ever thought was possible. So, those are some of the reasons that it's been so powerful, and then catalyzing all of this internal growth. And like I said, it's become my anchor when I need to remind myself of a time I was bad at something, of a time I didn't think it was feasible. And then because I committed and I stayed committed to the process, I achieved more than I ever thought I would. And it started the baseline of healthy habits. And yeah, it's been really powerful from that result. So, people have different examples and anchors of this story. Mine happens to be fitness, but it's such a powerful reminder that the beginner's mindset and things being weird and uncomfortable and awkward are worth it. Like, just stay. And I think that is, the real secret. I really do think the real secret is acting before you're ready or before you have the, confirmation that it's working or that it's the right decision, and staying when it gets uncomfortable. And I think that's why I'm so committed to those two things and those two phrases. But yeah, I just thought it'd be worth talking about this a little bit since I do reference it in so many different videos. And since I think a lot of people can relate. So if you can relate or if you have any questions, leave them below. But as always, you are not alone on this journey. And I think it's worth it. I think it's worth getting to the other side. And, sometimes we need those external examples and changes and journeys to then really uncover what's going on the inside, so we can reconnect to ourselves, who we really are, who we're meant to be, and then get the confidence to move forward towards bigger goals and bigger opportunities. So that is my wish for you. With that, I'll leave you here. Have a beautiful day.